don't get pickup advice or dating advice from a guy who is a lot more attractive than you. I would have thought that would be common sense. I would have thought that that would be something that made sense to most people out there, but it isn't really common sense. A lot of guys still fall into the delusion that the reaction of the girl equals good game, and it doesn't. Just because a girl has reacted well to a certain guy doesn't mean that he has good game. We're going to talk about that, and I'm going to watch a clip from another YouTuber by the name of Alexander Grace. I'm going to watch this and react to it. He was having a discussion with a black pill guy. I thought it was very interesting. Might go through the whole video. We'll see how we go. But the beginning parts I want to talk about. But before we kick it off, I'm Dave, and this channel is dedicated to giving you no BS, novel, dating advice for the modern man. Top link in the description to check out my website and get some coaching with me. I thought a lot of this stuff was common sense, but it isn't. People are falling for the marketing. But let's just get into it.
Then suddenly there's room for that subjectivity. So we might actually be on the same page there.
Yeah, I agree.
It makes me think about something that I have pondered, which is that there's not the right person to go to for dating advice for everybody, because personally, I would find it difficult. And I actually interviewed a dating coach called James Tusk, who's a really good looking guy. And I put this to him. I said, why would anybody listen to you for advice on women because you're so good looking? He's a really tall, well-built kind of guy. I was like, any guy who's uglier than you, in my opinion, can't really learn from you. If I was a guy who was looking to get advice on how to get a girlfriend, I would almost insist that he was worse looking than me as proof that what he was teaching me was going to work.
And this is something that I thought would be common sense. Now, this is Alexander Grace. He's actually a really intelligent guy. I watched this black pill discussion or debate that he had, and I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was the way that I watched a few discussions with this other guy, this other black pill guy, and he went around, and the most intelligent discussion was this one right here. But I want to touch on this actual topic. If a good-looking guy approaches a girl and she's playing with her hair and she's giggling, that's the initial response when a good-looking guy has approached her. So all you need is a good-looking guy, get him to spam approach. He's going to get some good infields, right? And this is part of my issue with guys complaining about or asking for infields from guys. It's like, okay, well, they can be manipulated by, you just put a pretty boy in front of a girl and he's going to get a good reaction. It doesn't matter what he says, but if you're out there struggling, how's that going to help you? Right? And I thought that common sense worked out there, and most of the guys out there would go, okay, well, if Dave's getting success, therefore Dave must have more game than others and therefore can help me more than others. But I'm noticing that a lot of the clients are still going to the pretty boys. The pretty boys are still getting all the clients and they're falling for the marketing, and it doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense to me. It makes me wonder if a legit day game or pickup coach, night game, anything would be able to succeed in this industry unless they're a super duper pretty boy. And I just a beggar's belief why people don't understand this. But what Alexander Grace just said is 100% true, that you can't argue with that. But let's continue and see what else happens in this discussion.
So it makes me think that not everybody in this world is going to find the advice that I give on my channel, although mine's a little bit less advice and more just explaining psychology, but you get my basic point, is that not everybody's going to find my stuff useful, because unless they're at my level of attractiveness, then our worldviews and our experiences are not really going to mash up and be actually that relevant. For guys who are kind of around the same level of attractiveness as me, or perhaps more attractive, they'll find tremendous use in what I'm saying because it starts from that as the baseline. But if you're uglier than me, you kind of need to speak to somebody else who can get from that experience and speak to that. And I think it's quite good that there's like advice can be stratified in that way. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good argument that you've made. And I actually watched the full interview that you did with James Tusk, so I know what you're talking about. And in fact, I actually made a segment in one of my videos about James Tusk, and I highlighted how he's really attractive, and like his like sort of goal is about teaching men game and like the right things to say, how to pick up women. But I highlighted in some of his interactions that his game meant nothing in each of those, and in fact, some of his jokes were like flat out just bad. Like they weren't funny, but the girls still responded in positive light because they were attracted to his looks. And there's actually subtle signs that you can.
Yeah, I went to this guy's channel and checked it out, and yeah, some of the things that James was saying were just, they weren't even funny. He seemed awkward. And the girl was just giggling, almost falling on the ground because she was just so nervous that a handsome guy was approaching her. And it just seemed outrageous that you would, from an educational standpoint, take anything from that.
See from women that they give off that show that they're attracted to you. So I highlighted in one of his interactions that a woman like repeatedly brushed her hair, like she smiled really enthusiastically, like she was laughing at all of his jokes, like that couldn't have even been like further from funny. Like and she was still giving all of those signs, showing that she was attracted to him. And and I kind of highlighted in that video that his game really wasn't
Oh, he's got ads on this channel.
relevant.
Today, Bono's dinner. Now, it can't be delicious and fast, but HelloFresh says it can. So
So I put it slightly different. I can totally see where you're coming from, but the way I think of it is that, I mean, I haven't seen the video talking about maybe his game was horrible in that one, but
no, usually it's good. Like no disrespect to him, but occasionally, like any man who's trying to talk to women, like sometimes you're going to be off the ball. Like you're not going to be on the mark. Like you don't have the good winning lines. Like you're not as confident as you usually are. But usually his game is good.
Yeah, well, he's good looking enough to get away with some bad game every now and then.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I was trying to highlight.
Yeah, I think that's the sign. That's the sentence right there. A good-looking guy, when he's giving you infields, showing you infields, he's more likely to get a pass mark with terrible game regardless. And the amount of times I hear someone say, "Oh, the girl reacted so well," it's like, hang on. What did he do? Have you replicated what he does? Does that work for you? Or does it just work for him? And is it because he's more attractive than you when he's approaching a girl that's beneath his mate value? Is that why he got such a good reaction? And then you need to think, okay, well, what does work? And then what you need to do is try to think, okay, what coaches out there are getting success despite their lower attractiveness level?
Video.
Yeah. So I get that.
And then obviously you need to figure out what they're doing and maybe get some coaching from them, i.e. me.
I think the reason why a lot of guys who you might think of as good looking, the reason why they don't resonate with the black pill like looks kind of content is because they might have been hopeless with women before they learned game, because that was like my experience. I won't say I was like hopeless, but it was when I was learning this pickup artist stuff and I started practicing social skills back when I was like almost 15 years ago now. It makes me feel old. But like I saw such a dramatic shift in my ability to attract women into my life. And I mean like night and day, and nothing.
Well, a lot of guys that don't have total newbies, and I'm guessing that's what Alexander is saying there. A lot of guys that are total newbies and they don't have any experience, and they're not ugly, which means they're over that threshold of attractiveness. So women aren't just going to reject them immediately. As long as they're over that threshold of attractiveness, any coach can get you out there and get you some success based on just being a motivational approach coach, really. But if you are still struggling after having a motivational approach coach step in, then you need to refine it down and bring something extra to the table. And I want to pitch my case that that's what I do. That's what I do here. I bring something different, something more intelligent, something more novel to the table than the vast majority of coaches out there. And I don't think that's an egotistical thing. I like to think that I do bring a little bit more experience, obviously, because I'm a lot older than most of the coaches out there. And I also bring new things that have never been taught before. And I've got a lot of guys that are of lower mate value success, which they didn't really think was possible. And so I had guys come to me that literally said that they were about to give up, and they didn't think that they would get any success at all. They got success, and some of them do have girlfriends even to this day. So I just want to pitch my case. Yeah, let's continue.
Really changed about my appearance, but my dating life, changed so much in the course of 6 months. And so you felt that power of, oh, okay, it's not my looks. There was something about the way I was interacting with women that was making that difference. And I think that you have a difficult time selling the black pill perspective to any guy who has personally felt the difference that going to the gym, working on your game, self-improvement, going to therapy, when you've had guys had that personal experience and you're trying to tell them the look stuff, I don't think you're gonna find any positive recruits there. That's one of the reasons why I don't necessarily get on board with it.
Let's move further on. I think I took note of a point up here that was interesting, because this is a long video. I don't want you guys to be hovering around forever.
To make on that last topic.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point that you just raised there. Maybe I don't know as much as I thought I did, and maybe I will have to give it a few more years and try research a bit more.
I'll keep in mind that the black pill guy that he's having a discussion with is 20 years old, so he's effectively a kid. He doesn't really know anything about the world. His idea of research couldn't even possibly be, even if he was doing this at university, it couldn't even be his second year of some sort of university degree. So his life experience is literally just starting, and he's really young. He doesn't really know what he's talking about, but just to take that into account. And on the other hand, Alexander Grace, my understanding is he has a degree in psychology, I believe, and when you listen to him talk, the guy's super intelligent. He adds a lot to the discussion.
Into that sort of topic about abusive relationships, but I think that you did have a well articulated point there.
It's just complex, and it's sad. What frustrates me is when I do see women totally deny the importance of looks. Like that really gets to me, because if you ask women, what do you look for in a man? They never talk about it. They never talk about it. I did this video, the 9 qualities that women never admit that they want in men. And I put number 1 was looks, but they don't talk about it. And there was another piece of data. I don't know if you saw this one week, but I found it so interesting. It was speed dating data. And they asked women what do you look for in a partner? And what's most likely to get you on a date? And they all said the number 1 thing was intelligence. Looks was, sort of middle of the road. And then after the speed dating event, they correlated with what they thought was important with what actually translated into second dates. And by far and away, the best predictor by a huge amount was how attractive the man was. And it just strikes me, and I've made so many videos on this, I can't stand the hypocrisy of women criticizing men for being shallow, for being all about looks, when women are just as bad, maybe not just as bad, but they're really bad in that regard as well. It's just that women don't admit it. Or
I have seen with my own eyes good-looking guys approach girls basically on the same level, and seeing how they react, and then seeing guys that are less attractive approach a girl on pretty much the same level, and the reaction that the girl will give off the approach is literally night and day. It couldn't be further apart. And so what most coaches do out there is they give the good-looking guy the exact same strategy as the unattractive guy. Now, the approach to hook ratio for the attractive guy for the same mate value approximate level woman is always going to be a lot different. So why give the same strategy to the lesser attractive guy, lower mate value guy, lower status guy, as the attractive guy? And this is what all the coaches do, because none of the coaches are experienced or knowledgeable or bring much to the table. There's literally very little, if any, out there that actually bring the nuance that I bring to the table when it comes to coaching guys. And it's a little bit surprising that, and this is why I have made a lot of fun of the London Daygame model. It is mainly because of this. It's because they've created this one-size-fits-all template for all men, when all men are so complex and nuanced that you cannot give the same strategy to all men. It just doesn't make any sense. So let's continue.
Well, I've often wondered if they just don't even have the awareness of it. Like, do you think women are consciously denying and lying how much looks matter to them, or do you think that they honestly don't even know themselves how big of a factor it is?
No, I think that they do know to themselves how big of a factor it is, but they deliberately try to delude men into thinking that it's not important as a means of making themselves look good and virtue signaling to make themselves look noble, make themselves look noble and virtuous in saying that looks don't matter and they do care about personality more.
Yeah. It's probably you're going to find some women for some and other women do it for the other motivation. But I think that amongst girls, when girls are just talking amongst themselves, they're going to be way more likely to be honest. You know what I mean? Oh, he's so hot, he's so dreamy.
Yeah, 100%.
Whatever. But when they're talking with men, it's almost like this collective agreement they've all made, never talk about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the study that you brought up was actually quite interesting because they did the same one with men, and the men actually said that they were honest. They said that looks were important. They said, oh yeah, of course, we need to be attracted to a woman, for us to be willing to date her. But it was just crazy that the dichotomy there was that women were virtue signaling instead, and they underplayed the importance of looks.
Yeah.
And also, I want to go back to a point that you raised about a minute ago. You said that women care less about looks than men, or you said just as bad as men. But then you said, oh, they're not as bad as men. They're a little bit nicer. They don't care about as looks as men. I have to disagree with that point. I would say women actually hold looks higher to a higher degree than men do.
Okay, so that'll be a difficult one because I've done I've read through scientific studies that didn't come to that conclusion, but maybe there's studies that you're aware of. I'm not.
I don't know about studies. Now, I wouldn't say that I have any studies to back that up. But I would probably, through my own personal experience, say that a lot of women do judge men on their attractiveness. And they, especially in the initial stages, and they will treat them vastly different based on their height, their attractiveness level. But, you see, this is where I would argue game comes in. Because a lot of girls will reject guys immediately or not give guys a good enough chance. But with game, you see, women do build an emotional connection to men that are a lot less attractive than them. And once they have built that emotional connection with a guy, it's pretty much rock solid. And I would argue that you can use game to your advantage to build that emotional connection with girls that are way above your mate value, even though in the early stages she wanted to reject you. Okay? Now, this is a complicated workaround for lower mate value guys, and it's a little bit complex, a little bit more difficult to achieve. But I would argue that you can do that, and the possibilities of you being able to do that is a lot higher than you might think. So let's continue.
Well, I think it goes from more of an observable reality, sort of basis. So, if you have these studies at hand, then you're welcome to show me them, and I'll take a look through them.
Yeah. So
straight away, because obviously, studies are going to be more relevant than personal anecdotes. But so if you have the studies at hand, then go ahead and show me them. But I do have a couple of personal anecdotes to provide.
Well, let's hear them in a moment, but anybody who's listening to this, and you can as well, if you look onto my channel and go, proof that women will never change, there's a video like that. And this was the largest sociological study on this topic ever done, because they've got women from 100 plus different countries. And so the data size, the sample size was just massive. And so Muslim countries, conservative countries, progressive countries, everybody. And they had these kind of bell curves plotted with regards to appearance and to how much weighting it is, as well as a couple of other factors. And it's just a much thicker bulge towards appearance for men as to what they're looking for than it is for women. So that's the study that first came to mind.
Okay, well, the study that I have, I'll bring up the height.
But also with the study, these guys just previously mentioned that a lot of women lie. So if the study's based on their actual behavior or their opinion, that needs to be taken into account. If it's based on their actual behavior, maybe the bell curve will be thicker than the men, depending on what type of study it is.
That one again. So if you bring up the height graph of how much women are going to be willing to date men based on their height, then you'll see that it's 90% rejection rate if you're 5'4" or below, and at 5'8" it's 50%. like you're never going to see that with men. Like men don't really care about height anywhere near as much as women.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because women like to date a guy that's taller than them, and so if guys that are was at 5'4", maybe only 10% of society is shorter than 5'4", where the female demographic, there's probably less than 10% that are shorter than 5'10" that would be willing to date a guy that is 5'4". So I think the rule is that women mostly date guys that are taller than them, and if you stick to that rule, then if you're approaching girls that are taller than you, then it's an uphill battle. Pretty much uphill battle because she's taller than you, and it's just an uphill battle because you're approaching girls taller than you. Focus on approaching girls that are shorter than you or your height.
That's totally true. Yeah. And so you would put height as part of looks and appearance, which I guess you should, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Now, the height pill is brutal. I've had people ask me, what advice do you have for short guys? And I mean, look at me. I'm a YouTube guy who's claiming to have answers on this kind of stuff, and it's like, fuck, I don't know if there's a magic bullet that's actually going to solve that. As far as I can tell, all of my advice is going to be relevant to you, but I don't know if it's specifically going to overcome that particular disadvantage because it's brutal. Women are so highly attuned to height. So, I mean,
yeah, I'd argue that firstly, only approach girls your height or shorter than you. If you are approaching girls your height or slightly taller than you, there is one thing that will work in your favor is race. So for instance, if you are a really short black guy, for instance, I think the studies have been done that penis size scales from Asians or Indian, Caucasians, mid-range, and black people at the top. Black guys at the top. Height correlates to penis size in women's minds. Okay, this is just me putting a whole bunch of studies all together. Okay, so this is just my what I've clustered together. If you are a black guy and you approach a white girl who is slightly taller than you, just a little bit taller than you, she's more likely to give you a shot because she thinks that your race will overcome the height differential when it comes to the size of your penis. Same as a white guy. You sometimes see white guys dating Asian girls who are slightly taller than them. And that goes down. But if you're a super short Asian guy, that's when you really start finding some troubles.
I guess maybe you have some answers that you could tell me that I can then pass on to people. If like a really short guy comes to you and says, yo, I'm short, women don't pay attention to me. Like, what do you just validate to him? Like, yeah, it's really rough. Or do you have some kind of actionable advice that you can give him?
Well, I have 3 pieces of advice that I can give to any short guy. So The first is the soft approach. So you can divide looks maxing into 2 types. There's soft looks maxing and then there's hard looks maxing. Soft looks maxing is anything that's like under $100. Like, it's cheap, it's easy, you can do it tomorrow. Like, it's not difficult. So if you're a short guy and you take a soft approach to something, that will be anything such as like putting lifts in your shoes or wearing shoes which give you an extra like couple of inches worth of height. Like that's what I would do in terms of that respect. In terms of a hard approach,
that's just silly. That's not a real strategy.
The end goal, what's the intention?
Well, so I think there's 3 things attached to the black pill ideology. There's so have you ever heard of the pillar analogy before?
No.
So like people use it with lots of different things. So they'll say, oh, here are 3 pillars for why this regime was a dictatorship. Have you ever heard of that before? Like that sort of thing?
No.
Oh, so like the way the analogy goes is like if you break down any one of those pillars, then it would have been impossible.
Okay. Yeah.
So obviously, like you need all pillars to hold up the to support the system, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think there's 3 pillars for the ideology of the black pill. The first pillar is like realizing the importance of looks. So you realize that women aren't truthful when they say what's the most attractive thing. That looks is actually the biggest predictor of your chance of getting a relationship with a girl. So it's the most important factor. And any like sort of quick YouTube search of doing a Tinder study of like having an attractive guy with an unattractive guy will prove that. Like it doesn't really take that much effort to realize that sort of aspect. And the second pillar is inflexibility. So there isn't really much you can change about your looks. So 6 of the 7 most important factors to do with your looks are genetic. So your height, your attractiveness in your face, so your facial bones. If you're bald, like that's mostly to do with your genetics. Your weight is something you can change. So like that's the only sort of behavioral factor that like, is more important, and that carries a lot of weight. How many inches you have, which again I don't need to explain. How your age and your ethnicity. So those 6 out of those 7 things are mostly to do with your genetic. At least 90 to 95% genetic. Those factors. And then the last pillar. So that was in flexibility. So there's not really much you can do to change your looks. And the last pillar is unanimity. So women are in agreement for the things that they find attractive. So like you can pretty much draw on a piece of paper like the things that women find attractive. So they will want a man who has a good jawline, hunter eyes, full head of hair, 6 foot plus tall, like good aesthetic body. So like you can pretty much pencil down the things that make men attractive, and women are in agreement of these factors. So there's not a pool of women that say, oh yeah, I like guys who are 5'4", like, and then other pools of women are saying, oh yeah, I like guys who are 6 foot plus. Like you don't get that. I think most men can agree that women are chasing the same men. Like there's high value men and there's low value men.
I can give you my number.
This is totally random.
It is?
I don't know how it is for you, but for me, like, I feel like I'm...
Yep. So I
So the 3 pillars of the black pill are... It's all about attractiveness.
Is there... I suppose that's a diagnosis of like the problem. I'm more curious about the strategy moving forward for like a solution, or is there none?
Yeah, that's kind of the problem with the black pill, isn't it? That there's no solution. And I would argue that a lot of guys out there like myself, we're trying to come up with a solution, right?
Well, like, so if you take a look at those 3 pillars, the reason it's a pillar analogy is because if you break any one of those things down, then there wouldn't be an issue. Because if looks weren't important, then it wouldn't matter if there's not really much that you can do to change your looks. It wouldn't matter if women are in agreement of the things they find attractive, because it doesn't matter. Like you can just persuade women to attract you based on your personality. Likewise, if the inflexibility thing was an issue, if that didn't exist and the other 2 pillars were still there, then it wouldn't matter that looks matter. It wouldn't matter that women are in agreement, because you could just change your looks. You could improve. You could become the person that women find attractive. And lastly, if women aren't in agreement of who they find attractive, then it would be simple, because you just need to find the specific girl that finds your look attractive. It wouldn't matter if women care about looks, and there's nothing you can do to change your looks, because you just need to find a certain woman who finds your specific look attractive. So if you break any one of those pillars down, then like there wouldn't be an issue.
So
I think with game, I could break down all of those pillars. And I have. If you look at someone like myself, at my age, with all of the disadvantages that I have, still managing to sleep with girls half my age, that's breaking down all those pillars. I'm finding a way around it.
Sorry if I'm slow to the uptake then. Are you saying that it is the goal of the black pill movement to try and break one of those pillars?
Not necessarily, because those pillars are like pretty much here to stay. Like nothing's really going to change, but you've got to find ways to like move around those pillars, if you know what I mean.
I don't. I think it's one of the things that I think, like, for people within the kind of sphere of like ideology that you're in, some of this stuff probably just seems like common sense. And so hopefully speaking to me, you'll get a sense of what someone who's not like in all that kind of area, the problems they have in trying to totally kind of understand where you're coming from. So treat my questions and my ignorance and my slowness in getting this stuff as the kind of questions you might get quite a lot if, you know, you're more successful and you become, you know, big on YouTube. You might get this because it just seems very, very much like diagnosis oriented, not solution oriented. And you can rag on PUAs and dating coaches, and like I quite enjoy that. You and I could probably have a good time doing that. I don't really like to do too negative kind of content, but you could make the case that at the very least they're solution oriented. They're trying to make it work in some sort of perspective. So like it's
true. Yeah, I think that's part of the issue with, I think part of I don't fully understand, because it's constantly evolving, the black pill and the red pill, and I think it's MGTOW as well. There's a diagnosis of a problem, but there's not many solutions there.
it can't be a surprise to you that there's a lot of misogyny around the looks-based movement. There's a lot of hating on women, and that turns off a lot of guys. Like a lot of guys, I feel like might totally understand that, oh yeah, women are superficial just like men are. They are, the reason I'm not successful with women is because of my looks. Like they totally get that part, but then it seems difficult sometimes to separate that discussion from the plus. The reason that women won't date me is because they're all bitches, and we need to.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge issue with the black pill, isn't it? It's like, okay, we've got a problem. There's no solution except women are bad. And so you can see how a lot of guys that go down the rabbit hole of the black pill, a lot of these guys can just get angry. And I would argue that the black pill's probably a younger crowd. Like this guy's 20. A lot of the people that I would see, most of them I would argue are the black pill guys are younger. And then there's the red pill guys that also have an issue, which I would argue are older again. And then there's the MGTOW guys as well. They're all kind of the same in a way. It's complaining about how women behave, but not really coming up with any solutions. And I think that's the main issue with all of these pills, is that there's no real solution, or they don't seem to be trying to find a solution to it. It's very tribalistic in a way. This is my tribe and we're going to war with the other tribe. Yeah.
Have women like distributed to men or whatever nonsense. And it's like, okay, well, is there like a positive side to the black pill? It's like, no, this is a solution. This is not a doom and gloom kind of perspective. We're not about hating women. This is just about education. We kind of go there because, without tooting my own horn, that's kind of what I feel like I'm trying to do. It's obviously not perfect because it's really difficult, but I'm trying to, on the one hand, totally validate men's concerns. Like, yes, the look stuff, totally real. The height stuff, totally real. But look, here's the best chance that you've got is to understand women, to improve yourself, to do all this kind of stuff. It's always trying to look towards a solution and get people into happy kind of relationships. What do you think is your version of that, or the black pill kind of version of that? Or are you not interested in providing solutions? Like, is it no, first we need widespread acknowledgement of the diagnosis and then other people will figure out the solutions?
Well, it goes back to the point that we was talking about earlier, that there's different solutions based on where you stand in your looks. So, and you kind of like, first you need the diagnosis. So like, you need to figure out what is the main cause of your rejection. So is it your height? Is it your face? Like, what specifically about your face? Is it your jawline? Like, is there a problem with your maxilla? Like, your eyes, something like that? Or are you balding? So you first need like the diagnosis, and then from there you can kind of work out the solution. So
yeah, he really, yeah, I'm questioning the intelligence of this black pill guy now, because he's just been asked for a solution. Anybody with an IQ of 1 can figure out that if you are not attractive, or you don't seem to be attractive in the eyes of women, there's things that you can do. Obviously, anybody with half a brain can figure out cosmetic surgery if you have the money and you're willing to do that. Anybody with half a brain can figure out, oh, okay, if you're overweight, lose some weight, hit the gym. I would argue that a lot of people, that if you tell them, look, you're overweight and this is why your results suck, they would probably agree and figure out, so the black pill is saying, okay, well, if you are unattractive, there's two, you've hit a fixed point. There's no way out. The only way out of this fixed point is to increase your mate value. That's it. And that shows a lack of intelligence as far as I'm concerned, because there's so many other solutions out there. So many more solutions.
So here's the most like plain and simple, obvious example I can give. So say if a man, he was successful with dating, like in his 20s, and then in his late 20s, in his early 30s, he went bald. Like literally completely in the blink of an eye, he went bald. Then the most simple solution that you can think of is get a hair transplant. So if he suddenly...
See, it's purely based on looks. That's it. That's not a real solution, though. I noticed at my age, I needed to increase my game. I needed more advanced game. They don't even think about that.
Wants to be objectified, so it's safer to do so, and they feel more comfortable with her because she...
More
in a way by her choices the beliefs of others. And I also think it's unfair for people to exaggerate how much something is in and then straw man like that. So in that sense, I completely agree with you. But if you don't mind me just pushing you a little bit there, I do think that the misogyny within the black pill culture is a significant enough of a phenomenon that the answer that you just gave there is not really adequate.
I think the reason why the black pill has such a large amount of misogyny or just angry people that are angry at women, it's because the solutions aren't adequate. They're just not adequate. And when a 20-year-old guy that sounds like he's got a British accent, which means he's probably in England right now, is complaining, using the black pill as an excuse, when I would argue that his looks are not the only problem. I would argue that there's so many other things that he could be doing. And I can prove that. I'm evidence of that myself. Then I would argue that when guys feel that there's no more solutions, that's it. That's all we've got. Then men become nihilistic. Men give up. They need hope. They need actionable advice, actionable things that they can actually do to improve themselves, and actionable things or purely on their looks is not enough. You need more, because anybody can figure that out. It shows a lack of intelligence. It shows a lack of understanding. I would say that men, or just human beings in general, it can't just be so simplistic. We need more. We need more options. We need hope. We need things. Okay, well, this is something that you need to achieve. Because I would argue that a lot of the black pill advice there, cosmetic surgery, it gets to the point where you need to go under the knife to fix yourself, and that's a little bit outrageous when you think about it.
Because I think that if you're going to use that label with regards to yourself, you need to have a more honest assessment. But that might be unfair of me, because to be like, in all honesty, you obviously know the community a lot better than I do, because I only know it from the periphery. But from what I've seen, it's bad. It's really bad. And I know that even in my relatively mild, moderate kind of videos, in my comment section, there's a huge amount of like misogyny. And so I feel like there's a responsibility as a creator to, at least once a month or a couple of times a month in one of my videos to really make that point that this is not what that's about, and don't think that it's going to be. I hope that I'm not coming across as in any way like attacking you or trying to make you responsible. I actively condemn that kind of talk, that kind of behavior. If you don't want to do that, it's totally fine. If I'm right in thinking that you have a similar goal to me strategically, I would, but that's completely up to you.
So what do you think these solutions would be for that then? So just one example, do you think it would be appropriate to remove comments in your comment sections of your videos that appear misogynistic? Would that be an acceptable approach?
I mean, even better would be to, if you were passionate about it, would be to actually engage with them and tell them, try and convince them that that's not the right thing to do, or to tell them that you disagree. Or I guess the strategy I've got in my channel is that I actively try and tell people, if you're here for woman bashing, go somewhere else. There's so many channels on YouTube where you can find what you're looking for. Don't come to my place to do it. Actively removing comments, you could do that. You'd probably want to be upfront, that's what you're doing. Sorry?
Do you think it would be a better solution to address that comment, leave it where it is, and then either respond to it directly as a reply, or bring it up in a video, say, hey, so I saw this comment on one of my videos, and here is why it is wrong. Here is why it is misogynistic, and I don't want this in my community or on my channel.
I'm really glad you're asking me this, because I feel like it's actually a good challenge, because it's all well and good for me to just sort of say, hey, this is a good idea. But as you're pushing me to actually nut down on specific actions to take, I'm realizing that this is actually quite complex.
Yeah, imagine if he starts doing that and then just attacks his own black pill community. Then he'll just end up having a target on his head. I don't have a solution either, except for maybe not labeling yourself a part of a group that you will possibly be branded with the same stick when they do something that is undesirable. Just not being part of any group is probably the best way.
Because the things that you just sort of said, I'm like, oh, no, he shouldn't have to do that. That's not his responsibility. So maybe I'm not being totally totally clear.
But if you said about like trying to pull people into the community and, you know, it has those labels of misogyny, then like surely you would want to address the people in the community and like kind of highlight and bring light to them that like you're not part of them, and you actually call them out. You do a good job of calling them out and saying why it is wrong.
I mean, it depends what you're passionate about. It's something I'm personally passionate about. But so, yeah, I mean, I probably would do that. I guess what I'm realizing in the talking...
Easy to fall down that path. Like if you are like really hurt, either like financially, emotionally, or even physically, like it's easy to fall down that path. And I can see why they would go down that path, but whether it's the right path, like I would kind of disagree. I don't think it would be right to like kind of just end up hating women because of what one or several women's actions like caused, and kind of like slap a label onto like the
as cope.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that argument.
Like terrorism, and I just think that that's.
There's probably not much else here. I think this video is long enough as it is. Well, yeah. I would like to just point out, yeah, obviously looks do matter. Looks matter. But I would say that a lot of the guys out there have it wrong. You can overcome it with game. And I'm perfect example of that. Having disadvantages and overcoming those disadvantages with game. So that's my pitch. Looks do matter, but my solution, I would argue, is the best one. I'll see you guys in the next video.